The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates 1 in every 68 children in the U.S. has autism spectrum disorder. And while there's been a lot of speculation and research surrounding what's behind the rise in autism, new data suggests a connection to diet. Dr. Eric Hollander from the Montefiore Medical Center Autism and Obsessive Compulsive Spectrum Program joins us with more on the latest in his field of research. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Hollander.
It's a pleasure.
So you estimate it's actually more prevalent than what the CDC says, 1 in 68 children, right?
Well, that's right. The most recent CDC estimates suggest that it's even more common than that, and we know that it's 4 times as common in boys as in girls.
So what's behind the rise from your expertise?
Right. Well, there's a bit of a controversy there about whether we're just doing a better job screening for individuals with autism, and because we look for it more carefully, we're picking up some of the milder cases, or whether there may be environmental factors that interact with vulnerability to be associated with an increase in the incidence and the prevalence of the illness.
Yeah, I mean, over the past 100 years, our environment has had way more chemicals introduced into it. So can you talk a little bit about what some of the environmental factors are that you think might be contributing to?
Well, sure. You know, one interest actually in autism is the role of inflammation. So the change, for example, in various factors like the gut microbiome that may predispose people to having some kind of inflammatory response to infections or other things.
Yeah. Now, in a study that you're working on right now, you're focused on diet. Tell us a little bit about what you're looking into.
Okay, well, we're studying a biologic, and this was based on the observation that many kids with autism were picky eaters, so they tend to eat a lot of carbohydrates and very little protein. It turns out that there's an enzyme that's made in the pancreas and secreted into the gut, a pancreatic enzyme that breaks down complex proteins into the simple amino acid building blocks, which then are involved in things like brain development.
So their body, they just don't have that enzyme, basically?
Right. There seems to be a subgroup of individuals with autism who have low levels, for example, in the stool of this enzyme. And as a result of that, they have difficulty breaking down proteins, and that's maybe why they eat so many carbohydrates instead.
And so talk a little bit about the role that proteins and fats play in brain development and how that's related to autism.
Right. Well, a healthy diet involves carbohydrates, protein, fat, and a good balance, really. And that balance, really, including the primary sort of amino acid building blocks, are involved in brain development early on and in enhancing sort of brain health over the long term as well. And if people have a marked imbalance in terms of their nutritional intake, that can have different kinds of developmental effects.
So this is phase 3 of this trial. Tell me exactly what you'll be looking for.
Right. Well, this is a study in kids with autism spectrum disorder, age 3 to 8, who come in with the signs and symptoms of autism, so the social difficulties, the rigidity and the repetitive or stereotype behaviors, irritability or temper tantrums, for example. And we're administering this pancreatic enzyme as a nutritional supplement or a medical food. And then we're looking at what impact this has on symptoms like irritability or social interaction or stereotypic behaviors as well.
So the hope is that this will become sort of like a pill treatment form for kids with autism?
Right. Well, the idea would be this would be a new biologic treatment. We want to identify whether it works for kids across the board or whether it works in a particular subgroup of individuals. We want to make sure that it's safe and that it's effective. And we want to have a better understanding of what are the core symptoms of autism and the associated symptoms that seem to improve with the treatment as well.
Are you still building out your trial right now? Are you still looking for kids to take part in it?
Absolutely. We're actively recruiting for kids with an autism spectrum disorder, and it's an easy study to participate in because there's no blood draws, for example.
Okay.
This is this can be sprinkled on food, or kids can take it in a capsule form. It's a 14-week trial, and kids come in every 2 weeks, and we give them a comprehensive psychological assessment at baseline, and then look and see whether or not there are specific improvements, and make sure that there are no side effects associated.
What kind of improvements are you looking for?
Well, in particular, again, we're looking for things like irritability or temper tantrums. Mm-hmm. We're looking at the social interactions, the back and forth of social communication. And then we're looking at things like stereotyped or repetitive behaviors as well.
I think, it's remarkable if you can actually tweak those sorts of things with, just replacing an enzyme dealing with protein.
Right. I mean, it's sort of a novel approach to follow up on this chance observation because of the sort of picky eaters that we see within autism. Give a sort of a pancreatic enzyme supplement that's naturally occurring, and then see whether we can get improvement in some of the core symptoms of autism and some of the disruptive behaviors as well.
So what else is happening in the field of research to kind of, improve the quality of life for people with autism spectrum disorder? What are some other things that are in the works?
Well, there's a lot of exciting developments. So there are studies looking at inflammation and the role of inflammation in autism. There's a lot of interest in peptides like oxytocin or vasopressin that may be involved in social attachment or the ability to read social signals, for example. And there's interest in trying to find rarer forms of autism where there's a single gene involved, and see if we can develop breakthrough treatments in those rare or orphan subtypes of autism as well.
Okay, well, we will definitely be keeping tabs on your work. Thank you so much for coming in to chat with us about this.
Pleasure to be here.
If you'd like more information about the study, email spectrum@montefiore.org or call 718-920-6732. We're going to take a short break, but when City Health Beat continues, health officials take a new approach when it comes